Hello. If you want to support us here at The Contemporary Gentleman, you can buy into our Spy series, links below. And depending on when this was recorded, we may or may not have an Instagram and or Patreon. If we do, links are below. Cheers. Hello everyone, this is James Donaldson with The Contemporary Gentleman, and I'm bringing you a video on the Sig Sauer Spear LT. Some may call it the MCX Gen 3. Stay tuned. Alright, and coming right into our gentleman's disclosure, as I said, I'll be talking about the Sig Spear LT, also known as the Gen 3 MCX. They say it's not, but I really think it is. Anyway, the gun and all the components are acquired through a third party, per usual, and I'm going to be doing some direct comparisons between the MCX and the Virtus, but also the general AR-15 platform, which I still think is relevant. As great as I think this gun is in general, the AR-15 platform I think is still very relevant. So let's get to it. So starting out, which I'm doing with my kind of initial impression videos, why? Well, the Sig Spear LT was released as I was waiting for my Virtuses to get to me. Man, that was a bummer. I was like, wow, my research on the Virtuses is going to be way less relevant, and plus there's this new interesting thing. And then I did love the idea of the Ambidextrous bolt release, though I never had it and was committed to my Virtus in 300 Blackout as it was an SBR, so I was like, okay, kind of can't do much about that. And then, of course, I also liked the idea of the less weight. Though in SBR form, I really don't find the Virtus that bad. So, definitely more doable than a 16-inch. Jesus, God help me. And Sig. Now, I had some complaints about the Virtus's gas management, and maybe some isn't completely accurate. I had a lot of complaints about the Virtus's gas management. So I was kind of initially not going to get into the Spear, but then I was also considering the idea of getting a flow-through can anyway. And so the other option being wait for someone to release a aftermarket gas valve for the Virtus, which really, I really don't think I would have gotten the Spear if that was the case. Now, the tipping point that made me cave and buy it was finding out how much better the gas system on the MCX is. And spoiler alert, the gas system on the Spear LT is. And spoiler alert, it is way better, for sure. Interesting thing I'll add is, what I didn't think about at the time is, because the barrel's interchangeable, I could have just gotten an MCX Spear barrel, Spear LT barrel, and just put that in my Virtus. Especially because I do think the Virtus looks better. I think the handguard looks better. And the fatness of the handguard doesn't bother me to where I think this is incredible. Now, the shape of the handguard, I will say, the way it kind of gets you some extra M-lock and things like that, I do think that's an improvement. So, I don't think they lost anything other than looks by going to this little different rail. I do think it's a benefit overall, but anyway. So far, let's talk about the so far. The weight. It's way better, right? But going back to, I did the math. I'm pretty sure I had my Mark 18. I got it somewhere in 2016, maybe 2017. And I had it till like 2002, 2003. And that was my only AR. that I had. So I put time on that gun. And so just how light it is, and the fact that Daniel Defense sells an almost identical gun with an 11.5 barrel, which is one of the reasons I moved away from the Mark 18 to get away from the 10.5, which I guess in retrospect I should have just swapped out the barrel, all said and done. But point being that it just, what am I getting for the additional weight? For the MCX in 16-inch, the answer is you're not getting anything that's worth the weight on that gun. Now the Virtus was way better, and I would say this is way more doable. So I've got some of the answers as to what you're getting for that weight, but I'm still looking to see if there's even more answers. Because the other thing at the end of the day is, getting into suppression, piston guns do not put less gas in your face than a DI gun. I will tell you that right now. As someone who's suppressed a couple DI guns and now technically three different piston guns, there's gas, especially in a 5.56. The 300 blackout really does have the two settings of basically suppressed, unsuppressed, or really subsonic and supersonic ammo settings, not so much suppressed or unsuppressed. The 5.56 is not. The PSA, just to be clear, these MCXs in 5.56, I know the Virtus is this way and I know the Spear LT is this way. It's not suppressed and unsuppressed setting. It's normal and adverse. You run it normal, suppressed or not, whatever ammo. You put it into adverse when the conditions, whether it's the weather or the dirtiness of the gun, or you got crap into the gun, whatever, when that gun needs more oomph to cycle, that's when you put it in adverse. So you can't really tune the gas system on these. And so that's yet another reason that I'm like, man, I still kind of nice to have a DI gun. Going with that, you can easily just put in a different buffer spring, which is usually where I start with suppressing a DI AR-15. Next would be the buffer itself, and or a gas emitting, bulk carrier, right? So release gas out of the ejection port. Not really a fan of adjustable gas blocks unless they're from the factory, like the way these SIGs are. I think, well, I'm not going to get into why and all the details, but we don't have time for that. I just don't. So anyway, this setup with the MCX is just not going to work as well suppressed as you can make a DI gun run as well suppressed. Now, weirdly enough, it actually stays surprisingly clean for having all that shit come back through it. I think it's because it's only coming down one tube, the barrel, and out of the ejection port. So a lot of it goes out of the ejection port. Some of it goes up and around and into the inner workings of the upper receiver. However, on a DI gun, you have two tubes, so the gas tube and the barrel shooting that gas back. So I think that's why they get dirtier. So there is that benefit. Now, high flow suppressors like Huxworks can right here. I wanted to get over a certain round count with an RC2 on this gun before switching to this. So next time I have an opportunity, I'm going to be putting the Huxworks on and trying that. One, to evaluate the suppressor itself, but two, to evaluate this gun with it. Now, that will likely solve all the problems of the gassing, but I'm going to verify that. I'm not just going to trust that. So, kind of getting through all that. Now, a benefit of the DI, or a benefit of the MCX system running suppressed versus a DI is when you do all that tuning with the DI, especially back in the, or really back in the buffer tube, you are going to have to change it if you change your uppers. So let's say you have two uppers and you're on both suppressed, or hell, one is suppressed and one isn't. If you're putting in like a heavy buffer spring, like that Mark 18 actually had a 308 spring in it. That was kind of my final tweak, which actually did a lot for gas management on that gun. It was after I made the video on it and was already planning on selling it, so I sold it anyway. But looking back, kind of wish I hadn't. Anyway, but if I put in like a different upper, that 308 spring was going to be kind of crazy for some other bolt to fight. So I would have to kind of mess with that versus just swapping uppers. With the MCX platform, all of the recoil system is up here. So it goes with the upper when the upper is removed, and you put a different one on. So all that tuning you don't necessarily have to worry about. Technically I could run the Virtus, I could use this Spear LT upper with an oddly gassed part, and then swap it for my Virtus 300 blackout upper. And since they're different suppressors, gas differently, I'm not having to change any barrels or anything. So I didn't mean to get into all that, but there it is. It is important. Now, likes about this gun. The gas management is noticeably much better. I look forward to using the Huxworks on it. And at the end of the day, I don't think cheap suppressors are going to be good for this gun because of the gas issues. So I think this being a highly refined piece of equipment is going to require other pieces of highly refined equipment to go with it. So something like a Huxworks over polonium, whatever. It's just because of the engineering that goes into it. It's cheaper for a reason. I'm not saying it's a bad can, don't get me wrong. And I really can't speak to it because I haven't ever used one. But from what I gather about it, it's a good can. It's got its niche market that it fills. And you shouldn't necessarily shy away from it depending on what you're doing. I don't think that item is going to work well on this. My RC2 is kind of gassy on it. So, that's a higher end. So this, with all its engineering, may be the ticket. Now, moving on from there, who isn't going to love an ambidextrous bolt release? It's just fantastic. The ability to simply pull back, push up on the bolt release, bolt back. Now it's forward. So, love that feature. Oh my goodness. Super excited about that. Now, I do like the rail more than I thought I would. I mean, it's very easy to grip and move my hand along. It is very manageable. Plus, the little contours over here make it easy for mounting the light and everything. It is just a really nice feature. So, I do like the rail way more than I thought. And it is easy to reload, and it's accurate. And then I appreciate that things continued from the other generations, like no buffer tube, which obviously it's part of the design. A rail that extends forward past the upper receivers where they go normally. So the upper receiver rail goes about here. So you are part of the upper receiver all the way out to here. If you want to mount the LAM to the rail down there, which is a whole other discussion, you could do that. Whereas an AR-15, you're already on the rail at that point. So, cool feature. And then, of course, it can do the whole world of accessories that you might do with an AR-15, like magazines and all that. And I will say, well, I'll get into it in a minute, but it's going to be about magazines. So, the trigger's great. I absolutely love the trigger. I think the trigger is fantastic on this gun. I'm not a trigger snob, so it's well good enough for me. But I have no interest in spending hundreds of dollars on a Geisley or something like that. Those are great triggers, but I don't think that they're that much better than this, at least in my opinion. Granted, also talking to a guy who used basically mil-spec quality triggers for a long time before getting a Geisley. So, now, gripes. Magazines, jamming issues. I have had some jamming issues, kind of some weird ones with both the MCXs. And so I'm not really sure. I noticed the other night it was with GI mags, so I think I'm going to avoid GI mags for this next iteration and see if I have any more problems. It was a rough one, and it was on a night vision night, so I had not as many tools as I normally have. Really didn't have much light. I was lucky I was able to pop it out the way I did. It was basically a really nasty double feed. So anyway, we'll see about the magazines. Now, the extra gas still exists out the top, and with the RC2 especially. So the gas port's about here. Gas is shooting out right at the underside of this rail. I don't like H&K. Their piston guns shoot it straight out the front. I think that's great. But there's all these other designs that shoot it back or up, or I'm like, or even like shoot it like at an angle out to the side or something. I don't know, but just that it shoots it there. I don't know why. Maybe they didn't want to shoot it forward for some reason. I don't know. But I definitely would like more gas settings out of it. Now, it doesn't have to be anything crazy like 10, but give me 4 gas settings. And then we'll see. But yeah, there we go. So, let's get into forward thinking. I think in the end this is a superior installment of the MCX platform. Yet I can see a couple places where improvements could be made, but that's just part of the teething process that a platform goes through. The AR-15 has been through most of it, so it's pretty much, we know how to perfect it if we want better weight. We know how to perfect it if we want better durability. We kind of know what parts, and in many cases what brands we're going to go to for those things. All that being said, those little adjustments and improvements primarily begin with the gas system, in my opinion. It has been clearly refined from the Virtus, so let's see about refining it just a little further. I will add this is due to being suppressed. I think when it's unsuppressed it runs really, really great, all things considered. Now, I understand many people don't have suppressors still, but they are becoming increasingly more common and will only continue to do so. So I think designing your guns with suppressors in mind, it should be about half your design process, and your other half designing it to run unsuppressed. So that's just me. This has been James Donaldson with the Contemporary Gentleman, talking about my initial thoughts on the MCX Gen 3, also known as the Sig Spear LT, whatever. Until next time, keep your composure.